Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to the first of two Greater Ithaca Art Trail Artist Talks. There's another one tomorrow night, and I hope you have so much fun tonight that you could also come tomorrow. I will be recording both events. I am Robin Schwartz. I am the Program and Grant Director of the Community Arts Partnership of Tompkins County. So tonight we're going to hear from Bethany Parisi, Vivinne Williams, Lauren Reid, Sarah Lopez, Jim Burlitch, and Barbara Behrmann. So the Greater Ithaca Art Trail is a program of the Community Arts Partnership. We run a Spring Rights Literary Festival in May. There's actually workshops through the end of September. We do the Ithaca Artists Market in August. We do professional workshop series for artists. Some of them are recorded on our website. The next two in November are geared toward musicians. It's the first time we're doing professional development workshops for musicians, so that's exciting. We've got a networking event coming up on September 26th, and we're going to have about $275,000 for 2026 art grants in Tompkins County. So it's very exciting, everything that we do. I just wanted to show you the Art Trail website. This is where, the Art Trail website. This is where you'll find out everything about the Greater Ithaca Art Trail. The next event after tomorrow night is the Open Studio Weekends on October 11th, 12th, and 18th and 19th from 11 to 5 each day. That's Jen Myers up at the top and Jen's studio to the right. There's Carlton on the left with all of his paintings, Carlton Manzano. There's Graham Otteson at Gordlandia. And then below that is Annie Sheng. They're all going to be open, along with some of the artists tonight. Fall foliage is going to be at its peak, so you can travel through like the beautiful landscapes of Tompkins County with artist studios as your destinations. In most cases, you'll be seeing where the artists make their work. You'll have really great conversation. It is such a nice event. I encourage you to come and please spread the word, bring friends and family. To find out who is open on these weekends, because there's 55 artists on the art trail and about 30 of them are going to be open. On the Art Trail event page, there is a PDF, or there will be a PDF. I thought I'd get it up tonight. It'll definitely be there by Friday. There's a map, a printable map, and a list of who's open and which weekend they're open. I just wanted to show you that on the Art Trail website, there's a page over here to the left with thumbnails from each artist. You could click on it and then it brings up an artist page with their images and their contact information. It also tells you who's open by appointment and how to buy their art. So it's a resource. It's a wonderful resource. So the first artist tonight is Bethany Parisi, and I am going to spotlight her. If you, at the top of your screen, there's these little boxes and how do I describe it? Little cubey things. You could click them. You could show just the active speaker video, so you could just see Bethany. So that's what I would do. As this is recorded, the recording will just show Bethany, by the way. This will just show you up at the top corner. So take it away, Bethany, and thanks again, everyone, for coming.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining. I am Bethany Parisi. I am an artist who lives in the town of Ithaca. This is really exciting for me. Last year, this artist talk was one of my first introductions to CAP. I had yet to really do much with them. I had known about them and seen some of the gallery shows that they had put on, but this was really my first time spending time with CAP. And then I ended up doing the art trail last year, and I actually met with a couple of artists that are on the call, which was really exciting. So like I said, it's exciting that I'm here now talking about my art. So here we go. Next.
Oops, sorry.
Thanks, Robin. So I am a wood carver. The image on the last page was one of my first large carvings that I had ever made. I started this process in 2020. I've always been involved in some kind of art. I say I was a hobby collector. I have plenty of other crafts that lay around now, but wood carving I just keep coming back to. I use soft woods, so pine. or butternut, poplar, etc. And I've recently switched to using milk paint, which is a milk protein that is then tinted with different minerals, and you mix it with water. So my paint is in dry powder form. It basically stains the wood versus a latex paint, which would sit on top of the wood. And I paint it first and carve into that. There's a little bit of a learning curve with milk paint because it is a drier material and you can sort of mix the opacity that you want. And because it is tinted with different minerals, it really does come in a set group of colors that they offer. And I have since recently learned how to mix some of the different pigments together to get the colors that I'm looking for. So I'm really starting to sort of expand my range of colors that I'm offering. Next, I use a number of different tools. They are all different size chisels and such. You can see in the bottom of the screen are the smallest tools that I use. They are typically used for, if someone has ever seen a butter mold, it's a typically an antique process or a cookie mold that people would carve wood so that the relief was facing out, so that when you pressed it into the cookie, you can then fill the cookie with different jams or sugars. But I actually use those to carve detail into my work. The pieces that are sort of in the center of the page, I have a number of those flex cut tools. They have a bit larger of a carve on them. They're also more ergonomically built, so they're actually much more comfortable. And then my Freud tools are the tools that I use in my larger pieces, and they actually require additional tools such as a mallet to be able to really get an image carved into the wood. I thought it was kind of cool to share how I keep track of all of the different tools that I'm using and the type of textures that I'm able to create with them. So I shared what I call my cheat sheet of all of my tools. When I get a new tool, I add it to the board that you can see there. And it just sort of helps me find the tool that I'm looking for much faster. Prior to this, it was just me sort of sorting and trying things out. So over the last 5 years, I've really sort of developed a process in keeping myself organized. If you can't tell already, I'm pretty type A. So this was a way for me to maintain that sense of system that I needed to keep working without going crazy. Next.
Oops. Sorry.
It's okay.
Go.
I take inspiration from a bunch of different places. I love to hike. This is at the top of Tumbledown Mountain. There is an alpine lake. So we hiked up up to 3,000 feet of elevation. And then I got to sit next to this beautiful lake and carve. I no longer feel bad about bringing my carving with me. Prior, I would go to these untouched places, mostly untouched places, and I knew that latex paint was actually a plastic, so I was sweeping up all of my carvings. My art is completely biodegradable from start to finish, so it's wood with a milk paint protein, and even the wax that I use at the end is citrus based, so all of it can be decompose and go right back to the earth. So I love taking my carvings with me now, and I don't stress about little pieces of wood ending up places because it was there to begin with. I love thrifting books that have images in them that is maybe something that I find inspiration in. You can see it's actually a lot of like needle point embroidery and such in that pile that's behind there. I included this because I just think the fabric arts are pretty far from what I do and what I work on, but I find inspiration in them and traditional folk art as well. I want people to remember that you can find inspiration all over the place. It's not just Pinterest that's available. Next, please. So this goes through my process. I start with, this is a piece of pine, but I also, as I mentioned, I work in some other softwoods as well. I will cut the pine down to size. I also tend to thrift and use salvaged materials. I'm currently working on an antique headboard that I found. A lot of the older headboards were made from pine and then covered with a thin layer of veneer. So I've been sourcing as many headboards as I can fit in my studio, and taking the veneer down if it's already in bad condition, and carving the pine that's underneath. But this, for example, was leftover pieces from my kitchen remodel. We covered the walls in a clear cut pine, so I was able to use any of the offcuts as the base for my art. I then go through and stain it with that milk paint that I mentioned. This is just black. There's other colors as well. And then I will, I think my next slide is actually going to show this, but I use a chalk pastel. Can we skip to the next one? Yeah, great, thank you. So these are some additional tools that I use. The speed square, I tend to frame my art out on the actual piece. I have framed some other pieces with additional pieces of wood, but this just creates a nice finished object, I think. I then use a chalk pencil to go ahead and outline. And the reason that I use a chalk pencil and not a regular pencil is because it actually ends up significantly easier to dust off at the end. Milk paint can be reactivated with water, so you can clean it up pretty easily, and the chalk washes away without having to erase down through the milk paint. After sketching it out, I'll go through, especially on some of the curved lines. As you know, wood has a grain, and I really have to pay attention to the direction of that grain when I'm carving. And typically the grain does not curve the way that I need it to in my image. So I go through with the X-Acto knife that you see, and I carve around the spaces that I know are going to be a little bit more difficult to get my tools into. I also go through, you can see there are X's on the actual image, and I mark what I'm going to be carving away and what I'm going to be keeping. That's so that I keep track. And then also, as I continue to carve, I go through and I'll mark areas because I typically use tools in succession versus switching back and forth. So I need to make sure that I know what is staying and what is going as I continue to work, or it can get very confusing with all of the lines. Next, please. So this is sort of what I'm talking about. You can see some of this has been outlined with a small U gouge that's along the edge and part of this flower. And then the flat piece or the flat area that you see that's completely carved out, I needed a different tool for. This is a part that can kind of get confusing as I continue through the piece. I think that you can see the mallet in the upper right hand corner. It has a wax covering. You use it to tap through areas. For example, if there is a knot or something in the wood that is just a little bit too difficult to push through, you can provide small taps to the back of the tool to sort of push that through. And my giant paintbrush to sweep up all the wood that ends up in my compost. Next, please. This is the soft clear wax that I mentioned. I do use other brands than the milk paint brand, but they had some really nice product shots, so I just wanted to show what I actually started with. It is a soft wax. It goes on clear. It tints the image originally. Basically, why I use this, it's not going to stop the aging process of the pine. It just sort of slows it down. Over time, these are sort of still living pieces of art, and as they oxidize, the pine will get a little bit warmer and a little bit richer. I have pieces that I carved just 5 years ago, and depending on where they are in my house, they've actually oxidized differently, even though they started off of the same cut of pine. So the wax just sort of slows that down. It protects it from the paint getting scratched off, because milk paint is a very dry paint, and so it can kind of scratch very easily. So this is more of a protectant than anything that's really going to seal it all together. I like the living nature of the art. I think it creates a really beautiful piece that sort of ages with the person, which I think is really cool. The color that you see here is one of the newer colors that I was able to get. Milk paint doesn't really come in a lot of purples. It's a difficult mineral to source and to dye into the paint, or to add into the paint to dye it. And so I had to use colors that you wouldn't necessarily think of to make purple to create that. So I'm pretty proud of that color that I've got now. I use a rag that does not leave behind fibers to put this on. You also have to make sure that any of the rough areas of the wood won't snag. So the type of cloth that I'm using is sort of specific. I started with microfiber, but I did find that it was snagging a bit. So I've switched now to a 100% cotton tight weave rag. Next. This is something that I do that I think I've talked with other artists about, and when I show my work, I ask for pay transparency to be on the card itself. And this is the spreadsheet that I keep that tracks that. So when people ask about it, I say that this isn't my main career. It's just something that I love doing. And if someone sees the art and they want to pay me for my time and materials, I think that that's wonderful. And I feel really honored that people want to do so. So I just let them know what I'm asking. I, uh, I keep track of the size of the piece, how much it cost me to actually gather the materials, how many hours of work went into it. This is really easy for me to track in my art form. I understand that it's not as easy for other people. And then if there's gallery fees or if there was an application fee to put it in a gallery, I keep track of all of that as well. And I just sort of work it into the price. I I think that pay transparency, especially in the art world, is important because I think that art has value, and I think that that can be difficult for some people to understand. I'm sure many of the artists on this call have heard someone say, "Oh, I could do that," or that wouldn't take that long. And I mean, I have pieces that have this is actually on the upper end, but I have pieces that have taken me over 40 hours to carve. So just keeping track of that, and it I don't know, it works for me, so that's why I like to include it when I'm showing my work. Next, please. This is sort of just a smattering that I selected to show off. All of these pieces are of different offcuts. They're all pine, though. I didn't include anything that wasn't. And you can see the upper left. Is from a lake that I stayed in Maine. There's a couple of pieces here that I sat out in my garden and carved some flowers that are out there. And then I received a commission for the cat chair that was done for a friend of mine who's a seat weaver and has a couple of adorable cats. And it was a commission from his wife. So that's always fun, getting that challenge from people and sort of coming up with something. You can see that it is definitely a little bit different than some of my other pieces. And I found the chair challenging in the best way to have to figure out and to carve into wood and capture all of the detail needed to make sure that it read well.
Thank you, Bethany.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was really, really interesting. That was so cool. What a great presentation. Thank you. So Viv is next, but Viv, give me a sec so I can spotlight you and unspotlight. Sorry, here's Viv. I'm going to replace spotlight. There you are. And here we go. Thank you. You're all set.
Okay. All right. And I'm timing myself, but so I'm really happy to be here. And thanks to all the folks who took their time to come to this event. I'm very happy to be here. So my name is Vivinne Williams, and actually we can leave it on this for a little bit. I'd love to share a little bit of background. And I don't actually have that many slides, so I thought I would just stay here for a bit and just share with you. That's in my studio, which was a former teenager's room that he'd painted basically almost black, battleship gray, hence the color of the walls. I began doing art when I was a little girl and attended music and art high school, which some of the older folks may know from the movie and series Fame. So I really started doing art seriously in high school and, treated it like, okay, I'm going to be an artist. Mom and family didn't think that was great. So I kind of ended up having a bumpy road, but you can go to next, please. So I think that'll be the group shot. Yeah. So I did end up getting an MFA and I taught at SUNY OCC for some years. So I was an art professor for some time. So this is a grouping of my work, mostly clouds. Some of the other work that you see are blue jay feathers, but I want to just share with you why I paint clouds, because I think for a lot of people, clouds might just seem like, oh, they're so simple, it's sort of banal. I think that for some people, they think that. And so that's why I like this group shot, because I think you really get a sense of the variety, the range, the range of the blues and the different moods that are evoked in each image. And so why clouds? I am very interested in Buddhist thought. I practice meditation and I teach meditation. And so clouds are one, very difficult to paint because they move pretty fast. They're always changing. They're so ethereal, I think is the word. And so when I do my art, I am sitting outside looking up at the sky. I'm not working from a photograph. And so that forces me to also be, very much in the moment, very spontaneous. Each piece I actually finish in about 3 hours, but it's really, really focused, really, really intense for me because it just takes a lot of concentration and it's quite difficult to capture what I'm trying to capture. So next, please. So I think I just have about 3 images. So this one is actually called Two Blues because on a formal level, like in terms of like the technique of the art, I'm playing with the idea of the different shades of blue, like in the upper left. It's a different, I think it's an ultramarine blue, but it's a softer blue, and then, having this more intense blue in the lower sort of right hand side of it. So again, just calling it two blues, just to also really have us look at the sky, because I feel like it's something that people us to look at, if that makes sense. And it's always there.
Viv, I think we're losing you. You're getting a little, uh, if for some reason we lose you, I'm going to go to the next person and then we'll come back to you if you rejoin, but you're frozen. Can you see us? Oh, Viv went away.
And next, please.
Oh, good.
Oh, gee.
We were
Next.
losing you, but you came back.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not unstable anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. This one is called Peekaboo. And again, just sort of as an artist, like fascinated with the visual world. Sometimes you're looking at the sky and it feels like you're looking actually at the sky, but there's like a thin layer of clouds. And so this was what was happening that day. One thing I do want to share is this idea, as I mentioned, I'm inspired by Buddhism, by Buddhist thought. And very often it's shared that our mind is like a clear blue sky, right? It's just spacious and open and beautiful. And that the thoughts that come through are like the clouds. So that's also one of the like the visual metaphor, for this idea. So the mind like blue sky and the thoughts like clouds just passing through. Next, please. Yeah, and this one, again, just one cloud. I was just fascinated by the sharpness of the edge of some clouds and then also the softness at like the bottom. It was just very, very soft, very beautiful, and then very crisp at the top. And these are very tiny. This one is probably, oh my gosh, I don't know, maybe 6 by 9. So that is how I can complete them very quickly. And I really want you to see the brushstroke. And yet when you step back, they really start to look more realistic, and up close, they look more abstract. Next, please. Yes, and so I think this is the final image. So this one, you can see I was just playing with ideas of scale. I believe it's called Yellow Lotus. So the lotus flower is said to be a lot like us going through life. It blossoms through the mud in the water, right? Like muddy water, and yet it comes up and it's pristine. The flowers themselves will be just spotless. And so this idea that we come through all of this difficulty. And there was like a Buddhist monk in the background. So playing with ideas of scale. And I was just also interested in light and trying to capture light, but I wanted it to be a little bit abstract. Um, so yeah, I think that's it. But my work that I'm doing for my show, I have a show that will be in January, is actually going to be fairly different. And is this the last one, Robin? This is the last slide?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so yeah, the work that you will see if you are able to come to that show, I'm going to be a lot of the same spiritual themes, but I'm interested in immigration as I am an immigrant here to the United States, and I'm really fascinated by the sort of worldwide movement of people and, humanity and where do you belong? Where can, as humans have always moved around, right, for food, for resources. So that my newer work is going to look quite different. So I think I will stop there. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Next
thank
up
you.
is Lauren, and let me highlight Lauren. Thank you, Viv. That was really great.
Thank you.
Here we go. Hi, Lauren.
Hi. Um, I'm Lauren Reid. I'm actually in this picture, I'm sitting in front of a mural I did at Southside Community Center. Thinking South Hill because I went to Ithaca College. Okay. And this mural is called Unity. I kind of wish I actually showed you guys a picture of that, but at the end of this call, I guess I could put in the notes, like my website, and you can see that on my website.
Yeah, and you could go right to arttrail.com and just click on your page and go to your website and see all of your work.
Oh yeah. Yeah, or that. But I guess a little background about me. I'm from White Plains, New York. I'm 25 years old. I went to Ithaca College and I went back home and I moved back recently last summer. And I'm loving it, living here as an adult. Um, you could go to the next slide. So I'm an oil painter. I'm a people person and I love expressing emotions, and kind of like rewriting backstories of struggle and making things kind of beautiful no matter what. And so this first painting is a self-portrait and it's called Selfie. I had a lot of fun with this painting because I was just exploring colors and this was the first background I did with like the light bright green, and I felt it was just really fun with it being like so bold, and I was just kind of doing like whatever went with the flow in this picture, and I loved it because it was me. Yeah, I guess we can look at it for a little bit. Next one is called International Women's Day. I painted this for International Women's Day, just celebrating women. And it's so like the contrast is so bold because I think women are bold and we have so many layers to us. And that is what I wanted to take out of this painting. Yeah. And I want people like to kind of take in what they take in for themselves because everybody has their different subjective backgrounds. And I love hearing like what people think and then like telling them my original thoughts. But for this painting is about women being bold and beautiful. I could go to the next one. This painting is called Blue. I was inspired by this painting from a picture I saw on Instagram, and I feel like this specific painting can be interpreted in so many different ways, and that's kind of what I wanted in the end, but I originally thought about strong-willed individuals. And in order to be like strong-willed, you kind of start off by leaning on somebody. And so these two kids, whatever they face, they're facing together, and it allows them to kind of have each other's backs and face whatever, and they have the potential to be whoever and whatever they want. Yeah. I love focusing on the details in the face. For this painting, it really is one of my favorite paintings because I love the expressions and faces. Yeah, that's all I can say about this one. Could go to the next. This one is called Green Identity. This was done with a completely blank mind. I had no idea what I was painting at first. And then this painting just turned into, I guess, multiple ideas I had from different people. And that's kind of what most of my paintings come from and are about, is like the influences and daily inspirations I get from people I meet and the people who are in my life and who I care about. My paintings are about like how we like lean on each other, like in the last painting you saw, that's called Blue, and how we're kind of interconnected and how we see and perceive from what our environments provided for us, and then how we learn from each other. So this one's called Green Identity. You can go to the next one. It's kind of going fast. I Bloom, You Bloom is what this painting is called. I recently just sold this one, and it was kind of sad because I had it for a long time and then I kind of loved it, but it's okay. I have prints. Oh yeah, at the end of this, like if you do want any prints of these paintings, I always have prints, even if I don't have the original painting. Just wanted to put that out there. This is called I Bloom, You Bloom, and it's about confronting a blooming flower, and the blooming flower is you and me, us. And it's just about kind of like where we are as individuals right now. Because when I first painted this, I was at a sleepaway camp, and I was art teacher for the sleepaway camp. And it was one of my nights off. And I decided to paint something that I just wanted to paint with nobody else and be by myself. And I just thought about the clouds, and I was looking up at the clouds, and I was just kind of thinking where I was in my life. This was the summer after my junior year in college. So I was kind of all over the place and not really knowing where I was going to be. So I was just thinking in the end, no matter what, I'm going to kind of grow and bloom in whatever situation I am, because I feel like I've always kind of been that person. If I put my mind to something, I'll get right to it. So I'm blooming in this painting, and whoever I'm seeing and talking to was also blooming. And that's just kind of the effect I feel like I have in my relationships, and also the people that are in my life, the effect they have on me. We kind of just push each other to be our best and bloom. And yeah, you go to the next page. This is also another like old painting. And I thought this was important to put in here because this was senior year during finals week. I was feeling super burnt out, and I was like, oh, my life sucks and I don't know what I'm doing. But then I realized everybody else felt that way. And so we're all kind of just leaning on each other and realizing I wasn't the only one feeling like that way, and that things were going to get better, and just painting my emotions and getting it out, and then feeling better, because then I realized we're kind of all in this together. And there's a lot of woman figures in this too, because I feel that I think it was mostly women that kind of I talked with this about. But in general, this was like kind of everyone. It's not like excluding anyone, any specific individual. Yeah. This next one, flow. I started this background with like random colors, and this was actually this painting, I did not make a specific palette. Usually like I mix certain colors together and I'm like, oh, this looks good and this looks good. But this I actually took some paint directly from the tube, the oil tubes, and I kind of just smeared it on the canvas, and I didn't know what was going to come of it. And I was getting ready for a solo show at the library place. And so I was like, oh man, I need some more art. And I felt like I needed to do what came from the gut. So this is one of my newer pieces, and this is called Flow. The title of my show, the exhibit, was called Flow too. So I felt like I was dancing, and then these people are dancing, and at my solo exhibition at Library Place, that was in Ithaca. They have that. Wait, Robin, go back. They have that.
I actually have to move it along.
Oh, sorry.
So
Okay, well, if you have any questions at the end, you could.
so this is the last one.
Okay, this one can be really fast. This is called I the Sunrise, and I did this collab with my friend Tane Muller. He was awesome. He wrote a poem, and I did the painting to the poem, and this is like about growth and the unknown and evolving and like seeing what new journeys are gonna come. And yeah, all of my work is about how our environment influences us and how I see people and how people see me, and then it goes on the canvas. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you so much. So next is Sarah, and let me find you, Sarah. Sarah,
Hi there.
there you are.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Robin, and thank you to everyone who is here tonight. My name is Sarah Lopez, and some of you might know me as the fiber painter, and that is because I am a fiber artist who primarily works with wool from sheep. So the lovely human standing to my right, their name is Carrie, and Carrie taught me everything that I know about yarn. So I initially started my journey knitting with acrylic yarn. I was knitting scarves and sweaters just to feel a connection to my grandmothers from Mexico and Poland who used to knit clothing for their families out of necessity. So I initially started my journey with fiber through knitting and then eventually took up crocheting. And then in 2020, I moved to the Finger Lakes and had all of this time. And my friend Carrie said, hey, can I teach you how to make yarn? And I said, absolutely. What a cool ancient craft that I would love to get involved in. And so we began taking wool from sheep in the area and we started adding color to it. So we would dye it and then we would use the spinning wheel, which is pictured on the left below, to make our own yarn. And then we started making clothing with the yarn that we had made as well. So both of our dresses are actually handmade yarn and handmade knitting wise. So yeah, Robin, if you want to go to the next slide. So this shows a little bit more detail about the process of making yarn. The very fluffy thing in the background is called a bat, and that is actually different types of wool, different colors of wool that have been blended together using a machine called a drum carder, which is basically a cylindrical force with a ton of metal spikes coming out of it. So the metal spikes pull the fiber apart, and it allows you to blend colors and add fun things like silk and glitter. And so once all of my colors are blended, I use the spinning wheel and I shape the fluffy wool with my hands in order to form a very thin thread, which is what is pictured at the top of this photo. It's got like a wooden bobbin that it's wound around. And then I will take two different bobbins and basically add the two threads on top of each other to create the final product, which is on the bottom of the photo, which is a skein of yarn. So after making so many dresses with my yarn and after making so many skeins, a lot of people were asking me, well, what do you do with the yarn if you don't know how to knit or crochet? And I said, wow, that's a really great question. I have no idea. So in 2022 and 2023, I began experimenting with different ways to utilize fiber. My goal was to bring it to a more contemporary setting. And so I actually found frames from a thrift shop and I started putting fiber into those. And then I found an old canvas that my mom had given me. And I had started cutting up pieces of yarn and gluing it onto canvas to experiment with something more contemporary. So Robin, if you could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So this is one of the very first pieces that I ever made as the fiber painter. I was going through an intense period of introspection and grief. I had been unjustly fired from a job of mine and was dealing with the death of a family member. And so my emotions were all over the place. And I decided to channel that into creation. So I began cutting up actually one of the dresses that I had knit for myself because it sat in my closet unworn for years. So I chopped it all up, organized it by color, and then began placing it onto canvas. And this piece really speaks to the emotional turmoil that I was in and how I was able to emerge from that into the next phase of life. So Robin, if you could switch to the next, please. Thank you. And so after that, I just began creating as a way to navigate all of my emotions and as a way to heal, essentially, was part of my process. And so these 4 paintings were exhibited this year in May. And they all focus on kind of the power that we all contain within ourselves. So on the very left, that piece is called There is a Universe Inside of You. And it is just to honor all of the miracles that happen within us on a daily basis. We are small bits of stardust in this massive universe. And so this was just a way to honor all of the small bodily processes that happen every day, all of the emotions we experience. And it's worth celebrating. So yes, we want to recognize the own magic that lives within us. The 2 pieces in the middle are titled Realization and Sun Rising on Self-Love. Growing up, especially as a queer woman, there is a lot of commentary on whether you are enough, if you're queer enough, if you're feminine enough, if you're pretty enough, if you're, insert whatever adjective you want. And so I was struggling a lot with my identity and just feeling like I was enough. And so these pieces kind of capture this internal process of realizing that I am enough exactly as I am and just fully embracing my identity and who I am and encouraging other people to do the same. And the piece on the far right is called Welcome Home. After some traumatic experiences with my own body, this piece was a reminder that my body is my home and it is worth protecting and respecting and celebrating. And so I wanted to share that message with other people as well. Next. So this piece is a community piece that I was actually, that I did at my solo show in September of last year. A lot of my art is focused on my own process, and I wanted to find a way to get the community involved and help them realize that you too can be creative. And so I ended up using reclaimed acrylic yarn from a local thrift store, and I crocheted a bunch of chains, and I found this stick at a local park, and everybody who came to my solo show actually attached a piece of yarn to the stick to make this beautiful community piece. So it felt like a very healing process to be able to encourage people to do something simple and tap into their imaginations and find colors that they're drawn to, and pick a placement that felt right to them. And so I think art is possible for everybody, and I hope to do more community activities in the near future. Robin, next. And so I do have a solo show coming up in September, and not this Friday, but next Friday. So all of my works from 2024 and 2025 will be on display. It will be called Fiberized, and it's an exploration of identity through handmade art yarn on canvas. So if you're in the area and if you're available, you can stop by. It will be at the Library Place from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock. So that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Sarah. So the library place is where the old library was, for people who aren't familiar with it. So next up is Jim. Let me highlight you, Jim. There you go. Thank you. Hi, Jim. Oh, you're on mute. There you go.
Okay. Okay. Thanks so much, Robin, for putting this together. And thanks to all of you who have joined. I'm going to talk about a story, primarily a story that kind of begins with an observation. And this observation was many years ago, and a process then that builds upon that and results in a work of art. Next. This is our bathroom in a home we built in the year 2000. It's plain vanilla bathroom with a vanity and medicine cabinets. And one time, I guess I happened to be by accident looking at two medicine cabinets at the same time, and I noticed that the ones on the side opened toward the center, shown in the next picture. And that gave me a kind of an idea, particularly that I might be able to use. The mirrors don't quite close together in the front because of the framing, and they enclose what's called a trigonal prism of space. And if one looks through the cracks in the front, you see what's on the next slide. This is a image of the center mirror. And the center mirror is picking up all kinds of reflections from the side mirrors. Most of those reflections then turn into almost an endless variety of frames. And at the time I thought, this is pretty cool. One of these days I'm gonna try to use that in some way. And it wasn't until, 2 years ago, when I got an invitation to produce something for the State-of-the-Art Galleries photo show. And I thought, well, maybe this is the time to look into this observation that I had made. And so on the next slide, you'll see a setup that I put together for photographing through that crack. There's a floodlight at the top. There's a black cloth at the bottom to hide the plumbing. The mirrors tend to pick up just about everything in sight, and even we removed everything from the shelves. And a clamp that will hold a camera. And on the next slide, there's two now. On the left is a is a clamping arrangement for the camera, which is against a piece of scrap cloth from my wife Kathy's sewing collection, and the clamps are holding onto a camera. So I needed a subject for this work of art, and being a homegrown apple grower, I thought, well, maybe apples would be good, but it was in, this is February, so I had to go to the local store to find some apples. And I selected a green and a red one and mounted them on wires, stiff wires that are held in place in a wooden block that was originally cut off when not needed to build a house. And those apples stick up into that trigonal prism space that I mentioned earlier. Now, the next slide will
Sorry.
show the picture that I got from a camera. Now, the camera turns out to be not my Nikon, because it produced a picture through the crack, much like you saw earlier on, where all you were mostly seeing was a frame. I had to cut a little hole in that piece of fabric. You can see the hole there in the front. And lo and behold, the sort of magic of those mirrors produces this almost infinite array of apples from just 2 apples. So that that in itself I thought was really good, but it the way it was put together is still sort of shown around the edges, and I needed something more to help sort of hide those edges. And then I thought of a saying that's familiar to most of you: smoke and mirrors. I have the mirrors. So now maybe what I need to add is the smoke. So I did that. Next slide, please. And the first attempt was a total failure because it's not hiding much of anything. You can see down at the very bottom of the picture my hand and the 2 wooden matchsticks that created that smoke when touched off by a lighted match held by my wife Kathy. But that was because I was not prepared for how fast the smoke rose once the matches were lighted. So it took a few practice runs and to get the next picture. And that was pretty close to what I wanted, namely the top of the cloud of smoke and a whole bunch of it still down below, kind of smoothing over some of the things that were going on there. So then it was just a matter of 2 other changes, pretty much. One was crop the top. I didn't need all the woodwork at the top. And the match heads didn't produce smoke that you and I think of when wood is burning. Namely, it's going to be blue pretty much. But Photoshop came to the rescue there, and I was able to easily crop the top and turn the smoke a little blue. And that's shown on the next image, Robin. And this then is the final image I settled on. It has all the pieces that I needed in the right places, and I called it a bountiful crop from smoke and mirrors. It happened to win a small prize, honorable mention in the photo show a little later on, and I was kind of happy about that. But the fun that I get is in the process, which is just on two levels. There's a sort of a thought process, and on a more practical level, there's a how do you get this done process. Both of those I really enjoy doing, and many of my photos have such stories. For example, the next picture has two again. Robin, thank you. Now on the left, I have shown a picture of a painted eucalyptus tree in Kauai that we found. There, the story is told by the colors of the bark of the eucalyptus tree. And on the left, the banking pileated woodpecker photo almost is a story in itself if you ever could imagine what it might take to photograph one of these birds. I have many pictures in my home studio, most of which have an interesting story behind them, and I invite you to visit during the Art Trail weekends that Robin spoke about. So thanks again for coming.
Thank you, Jim. I love the story. I love the creative problem solving. Next is Barbara, and I'm going to highlight you. And then after, if you'd like to stay, everybody, we'll do a little bit of Q&A. Barbara, here you are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Robin, and thank you to the Community Arts Partnership for making the Art Trail possible. And I want to reiterate my thanks to everybody who's been listening and sharing your time with us. So I'm a fiber artist who makes abstract art quilts, and I am a painter who creates abstract acrylic paintings. So I work in two completely separate mediums, but my work does share some common characteristics. And so for these next few minutes, I'd like to show you some samples of my work, tell you a little bit about them, and then tell you what you can expect to see during my open studio hours, which this year I will only be holding on the first weekend of the Art Trail. So I'm going to start by talking about my fabric art, which also makes sense because I've been doing it a lot longer. And I want to make sure that everyone is on the same page and understanding what I mean by an art quilt. So an art quilt is typically constructed similarly to what comes to mind when you think about a traditional quilt. There's the quilt top, which can be made in many different ways. There's a bottom layer of fabric, and then in between, there's a layer of batting, and those are sandwiched together and held together with lines of decorative stitching, which ideally enhances the design. And so an art quilt is just like a functional quilt, but it's not really intended to serve any functional purpose, like say a bed quilt, but it's something that would be displayed on the wall like a painting. So there are as many ways to make and design art quilts as there are artists. But one of the things that I do is to start by making the fabrics that I use. So next slide, Robin. So here you can see some examples of the fabrics that I make. They represent a variety of different techniques: painting, printing, immersion techniques. I could spend an hour just talking about that. And I use fiber reactive dyes to do this. And unlike paint, which sits on top of the fabric and can make it really stiff, the dyes become part of the molecular structure of the fabric itself, and so they don't affect the feel of it. And so I sort of view this slide as like saying, like, here's my paints. This is what I then cut up to make the quilts. Next slide. For the most part, I tend to create quilts in one of three different styles. And these are three sample photos of the first style, which is improvisational, which basically means I have no idea where I'm going. I don't have a roadmap or a sketch. During open studio hours, I'm happy to demo some of the processes to create these. Next slide. The second style that I make is more planned, and it's based on photos that I've taken. I'm very influenced by place, whether it's the beauty of the Finger Lakes, the drama of the Southwest, where I spend a lot of time, or other places. And when I talk about landscape, that can mean something as big as the view that I see out of an airplane window, or something as small as the cracks in pavement or the details of rocks. And that's what this is here. The piece on the left is um, an abstracted interpretation of some rocks that I saw. And the piece on the right is based on a photo that I took of a slot canyon, a very narrow canyon in northern Arizona. And then the third style, which is on the next slide, is typically much smaller, and they're just abstract designs that I make and then mount onto painted and sometimes textured wood panels. So those are the main sort of categories in which I work with fabric, but I play around with other ideas as well. Next slide. Thank you. So here are 3 images that don't really fit my typical, quote unquote boxes. The piece on the top is a collage where I incorporated all kinds of papers and fabrics that aren't necessarily my own. The piece on the bottom left is also improvisational, but it's really featuring the fabrics themselves rather than cutting them up into smaller pieces. And then the piece on the right was a total experiment after I cut up a quilt top that wasn't working. So that's really a general overview of my fabric art. Despite the different styles, they share common characteristics, and that there's a lot of saturated color. They're all layered constructions. They're all abstract and often improvisational. And my paintings are like that as well. They're colorful, they're layered, and they're improvisational as well. So we're going to go to that next. So here are 2 samples. A lot of my paintings are just pure abstractions. I'm not trying to suggest any kind of representational subject matter at all. And you can see that these 2 here, which are currently in a show in Arizona. Next. These 2 paintings represent a slightly different way of approaching the work. They're still abstract, but they in some way suggest landscape. I'm very attracted to rural landscapes, urban, and often imaginary landscapes as well. And I mentioned that I'm influenced by place, and these 2 speak to that. The piece on the left is influenced by the gorge at Buttermilk Falls. I think I've taken the same photo about, 40 different times. And the painting on the right was influenced again by that view looking out of the airplane window. I want to mention that these 2 paintings are among the pieces that you can currently see at the State of the Art Gallery. I'm one of 2 featured artists along with Katrina Morse in the main gallery in the front, and our show, which is up through September 28th, is called Imaginary Landscapes. That's the theme, and we interpret it very differently, so it's kind of fun to see that. And if you're interested in learning kind of what goes into making some of the quilts that I just showed or paintings like this, I'll be giving a talk on the 28th called Trial and Error in Making Abstract Work. And that will include I'll be showing some pictures of some really, really bad work, which is kind of fun, and how I made it, went from bad to something good. Overall, I love talking about what I make and how I make it. I love to share my work with others, which of course is what the Art Trail is all about. I mentioned that this year my studio is only open on the first weekend, but I wanted to show you a couple of photos from last year. Next. So basically, I turn almost the entire first floor of our house into a gallery. I have a very tolerant husband. So I'll have quilts and paintings of all sizes and all price points. And because I'm actually running out of storage room, I'm going to have a big sale as well with a lot of pieces up to 50% off. I have a lot of smaller work available. Next slide, please, Robin. These are some 5x7 paintings, which I have mounted in 8x10 mats. I have a whole bunch of those. Next slide. I also have a couple of dozen of these very teeny little quilts. They're 4 inches by 6 inches. They're mounted on watercolor paper to go into 8x10 inch frames. And the theme of these is called All Are Welcome, because each piece with various degrees of abstraction represent a home, a window, a doorway, a roof. And 25% of the proceeds from anything I sell of these I am donating to Ithaca Welcomes Refugees, which for those of you in Ithaca, you might be aware that they provide absolutely invaluable services to our refugee community in Ithaca. So that's pretty much it. I'm in Danby. I'm just off of 96B in a beautiful wooded setting. Unfortunately, you do have to walk up a flight of stairs to get in. So if you have mobility issues, that might be difficult. My website is Art Quilts by Barb. I had the URL before I started painting, but my paintings are there as well. And I'm on Instagram and Facebook as well. So thank you for your time. I hope you'll come see me on the trail, and I'm happy to answer any questions.